So we'll call the meeting of the Transportation and Safety Committee meeting together to order. I guess I'd like to start off with I see many of the Cupler family here, and I was out of the country when I got the news that George had passed away, and I was so disappointed in one, that I was away and couldn't be here to attend the services, but just thinking of you guys and the whole family. You're such an important part of this community, and George was a huge part of it, as we all know, and I was just really disappointed to hear it. So really sorry to hear about this loss.
Alex Arnello, Public Works Director. And first item is items from the public that are not on the agenda. You can see the agenda here, so if there's anything else that anybody wants to comment on.
Is this on the 4th Street?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Well, we haven't. We'll have four.
Wait till we have public, or you do yours, then we'll come after you.
Yes. Okay.
I think that would work better.
And for anybody, we do have a sign-up sheet and handouts if anybody would like those.
Yeah, so what Alex was asking is that if anybody has anything to address the committee about that's not on the agenda, please come forward and if we can talk about it, we can talk about it. Otherwise, we'll get it on a future agenda. So if there's anything that you want to address that's not on the agenda, please come forward. Okay.
Okay, so the next item was the 4th Avenue and Sycamore Street restrictions. As the TSC recalls, we've had a discussion about Coal Creek Drive and how to discourage cut-through traffic from using that.
I'll just give it the dark.
And one of the measures that was proposed was a turn restriction at 4th and Sycamore, where you'd only allow right turns only. And so we attempted to put a temporary restriction by means of installing delineators. There you go. And a right turn only sign. So this is we had four delineators on 4th and 3 on Sycamore, and we measured traffic both before and after we put the restriction in place to find out whether this was an effective way of discouraging traffic on Coal Creek Drive. This was kind of a tricky way of doing it because Sycamore Street was had pretty narrow lanes, 10-foot lanes, so any delineators on Sycamore were in the way of snowplows, and so we lost the delineators 3 or 4 times, including last night. The ones on 4th seemed to remain, but the ones on Sycamore were gone on several of the snowstorms. So we ended up putting up 10 or 12 delineators, kept replacing them and to see what the traffic would be. So we counted, there's 2 ways we counted traffic. First, back in late October, we did a turning movement count, which essentially we had someone sit out there for a couple hours in the morning, a couple hours over noon hour, and a couple hours in the evening to see whether these actually restricted left turns. So that first chart I presented in my memo. Let me get it to you. Here we go. So this was before. This row shows the traffic in late October at 4th Avenue as you're going northbound. 61 vehicles during those 6 hours were turning left. 35 were going through 4th to the bank, and then 116 vehicles were turning right. And then we counted the traffic again in late December when the restriction was in place, and it was pretty successful for the lefts. There were a few, 3 people that kind of made it through the delineators, but 95% reduction in left turning traffic, 63% reduction in the through traffic. But then the right-turning traffic went up, so people were either going out to Marshall, making U-turns, but there was some increase in the right turners. So overall, about a 29% reduction in traffic going northbound on 4th.
Alex, a quick question. So the through traffic, that's just, if you go back to that image, that's just, they're going straight ahead, possibly over the white things that you had up
Right.
to force them to turn right.
Yep.
Okay.
So there were a few that went, right, 13 of them kind of found a way through the delineators and made it through. So we wanted to test what happened on Coal Creek Drive, the traffic go down on Coal Creek Drive. So we had counted traffic back in January of last year of 2017, and then we counted traffic in February of this year, and actually we went out and counted traffic at these two locations at 3rd to 4th, or east of 4th and then west of 4th, because the traffic actually went up when we counted them in February. So take from 1st Avenue to 2nd, the prior count was 1,218 vehicles per day in a 24-hour period, and that was on the weekday. So that's half of that goes one way, half of that goes the other, or in this case, probably not quite half, because we have a 3/4 access at McCaslin. So 2018 count was 1207 at that point, so that went down, a little bit, 1%. From 3rd to 4th, traffic went from 1,072 to 1,108, so increased slightly. On the west side of 4th, on Coal Creek, from between 4th and 6th, traffic went from 962 to 935, so it went down a little bit. And then west of 8th, 145 to 1024, down a little bit. So that was on the weekday. That was on a Friday count. We also counted on Saturday, and actually the traffic from 1st to 2nd went up 15%. From 3rd to 4th, it went up 8%. And from 4th to 6th, it went up 16%. So something was happening on Saturdays that it did go up a little bit. On Sundays, we did have a reduction from 1st to 2nd, from 957 to 773. But on Sunday, from 3rd to 4th, went up from 881 to 931, or an increase of 6%. And from 4th to 6th, went up 12%.
Alex, did we take any data on 4th between Coal Creek and Sycamore to monitor what the traffic counts were on 4th?
Yeah. Okay, on 4th, we had a count back in March of 2016. We didn't have one last year, but in March of 16, it was 1295 on 4th. And in February, it was 836, so it went down about 450
So that's like a
on 4th.
40% reduction? Okay.
Can you elaborate on that a bit? Do we have a map that's easily accessible
Yep.
to see that? Okay, so this is C. Hold on a second here. Okay, the first measurement you have, 1st to 2nd on Coal Creek Drive. That's easy. That's traffic coming off of McCaslin,
Right.
making a left.
It's right in this direction, right.
Yep. Okay. Then you go 3rd, 4th. I see that. Then 4th to 6th Avenue. So what's that measurement you're taking? So on Coal Creek Drive, 4th to 6th. Now, what was the one you just asked about?
So I asked between Coal Creek and Sycamore on 4th.
Okay.
So, this is where the right turn only was implemented. So
Yeah.
my question is, do we have data to show that this traffic has decreased? And based on Alex's answer, the answer
Yeah,
is yes.
1295 and 2 years ago, and 836 with the restriction.
Okay. So there's roughly a 40% decrease in the traffic on 4th from Coal Creek to Sycamore, is what we're saying.
Right, but almost no material change on anything on Coal Creek.
Right.
Right.
So, but there aren't,
Don't ask me to explain it.
right, in January, there were certificates of occupancy on the Coal Creek crossing by January of 2017. So these aren't new residents. There aren't hundreds of new residents. There might be 1 or 2 new houses that got occupancy, but.
And actually, based on the data here, it looks like weekday traffic on Coal Creek didn't change at all. But weekend traffic actually increased anywhere from 8 to 15% on Coal Creek.
Right.
Notwithstanding the public outreach to encourage people to use Marshall instead of Coal Creek, and notwithstanding the turnout over here.
But what would the traffic have increased without the public outreach? And that's, obviously, we don't know the answer to that,
Right.
but that's the.
So Alex, you said don't ask you, but I was hoping to get some answers of what, this is what you do, so you study traffic and...
Yeah, again, traffic is a sample data. It varies from day to day, week to
Right.
week.
Yeah, so I get that the -1 or the 3% pluses or minuses,
Right.
to me that just could be a blip in the day. It could have been poor weather, it could have been a baseball game on or
Right.
something or football or whatever. So I get that, but when you talk 15% differences, and why?
Yeah, it's difficult to ascertain. Maybe Coal Creek Coal Creek Crossing, they pretty much completed construction in December of 2016. So most of the houses were occupied. That could be one explanation. Maybe not all the houses were moved into. That could be one possible explanation.
But if you look at the weekend traffic comparison, the only thing where there's any sort of difference noticeably between like Saturday and Sunday is 1st to 2nd. On Saturday, increased 15%. On Sunday, decreased 19%. But then 3rd to 4th is 8 versus 6%. 4th to 6th is 16% versus 12%. Basically in line, showing some sort of slight increase over what was happening in 2017.
And Alex, do you have data east-west? Do you have it parsed by direction or no?
Yes.
So was there any, loath to ask the question, but did the east versus west provide the insights? Because effectively what you're doing is this experiment was to try to reduce the non-resident westbound traffic.
Well,
The objective. So in theory, we really should just be looking at the westbound traffic.
yeah. Well, we've always had more traffic going westbound than eastbound
Right.
because you have a restriction at McCaslin, you can't turn left. So, for example, on east of 4th, that Friday when we had 1108, it was 611 going westbound and 497 going eastbound. So about 100, a little more than 100 more going westbound.
Right, but can you give me the comparison? Could you give me the comparison between 17 and 18 westbound only? Cars per day? And pick, I don't care which one you pick, 1st to 2nd, 3rd to 4th, 4th to 5th, I don't care, 4th to 6th. But if you have the westbound only data, it wasn't in the packet.
Right. Let's see if I can. this is going to be hard to see then. That's at first. Okay, so this is east of 4th.
East of 4th direction,
So you have westbound and
Okay,
eastbound. So this was on a Friday. This is in, January. Yeah, January of last year. So that's 635 compares with 611. And at 437 went to 497.
All right, so that's a bit of a difference, right? So if it was roughly the same, we increased eastbound, did decrease westbound by, it went from
5%,
635 to what?
611,
611.
less than
And
5%.
do you have other data, Alex, I mean, this is, you usually do your traffic studies longer than 4 days. I mean, this is one study of Friday, January 19th.
Mhm.
Yeah. It's a good point. What happened, that's the only data.
Yeah,
we
so
have.
westbound went down and the eastbound went up.
Well, we have Saturday and Sunday here, right? So
Yeah.
635 was on Friday. What does that say? 598.
And that 596 went to 618.
So Saturday increased.
Right. And the 362 there, is that 362?
Yeah.
That went to 434.
Okay, increased more. And Sunday?
That looks like 530.
530 went to what?
Yeah,
What was
that
the 2018 westbound 530, westbound data?
549 went to 530 went to 549, and the 362 went to 382.
So it does tell, so all eastbound traffic increased materially, right? So if you're, not materially, but at a greater rate than the westbound traffic either increased or decreased.
Mhm.
And so there was more traffic, right? Okay. My other question, the same data collection methods, right? We're using the strips or whatever to collect the data?
Yeah, there's the road tubes that they put down on the road, and you can see a lot of this data is fairly consistent in terms of the days of the week from year to year.
Okay, we've heard a couple, I'm sure there's going to be public comment.
Yeah.
We've heard a couple anecdotes that it appears.
Yeah, I think they could probably, some of the people out here probably have traveled those, and they can maybe tell you
Right.
what was happening.
Okay.
So, having those delineators is not a good long-term solution. So I've been struggling on what do we do if we want to do this on a permanent basis.
How much do those delineators cost?
They cost about $80 a piece,
And how frequently do you need to replace them?
and we replaced them almost after every snowstorm, major snowstorm. So the ones at Sycamore we probably replaced 4 to 5 times.
Do you have an idea as to the total amount that the town spent in connection with
We
this
probably spent
project?
about $1,000,
Okay.
including staff time.
Does that include like the sign?
Yeah, one of the things I'm concerned about from a safety standpoint is that we have an offset intersection, and normally when you come around, you go around the left turners. So if there's someone coming and making a left turn, you go around them. By putting these delineators up, these left turners are going, they're kind of coming through that area, kind of through the left turn lane. I mean, that's a real concern of mine, that it's not a really a configuration that you would find. You have those delineators blocking that left turn lane. So allowing them to do, and people are doing this type of maneuver to get around those left turn lanes. So that was my concern on how do you try to do that on a permanent basis. And this is one idea I came up with. So we have 3 lanes. We have 2 lanes coming in that go to 3. One becomes a left turn lane, and we have a through lane and a right turn lane. And if we can make that right turn lane a right through and put that traffic in here, potentially put a median island in here, and then allow left turns to go on one side of the island, similar to what we used to have out on the Caslin at Coal Creek. Mm-hmm. And then this would be striped. You'd have a left turn that would be, protected, and then you have the through right. So this would be a solution that eliminates that issue with the left turn. However, what we've done is this becomes right turn only. So, you can make a right, but you can't make a left. You can make the left in. In this case, going to the bank, you can't make a left in, and you can't make a left out. All you can make is a right in and a right out. So that's one solution.
But you'd be increasing traffic in a residential neighborhood instead of exiting from a shopping center. You're sending them into a residential neighborhood, parks.
Well, they have other ways out. I mean, I'm trying to a safe solution, because I think what we have out there now is not a very safe solution with that left turn coming out and going across a left turn lane.
What do you think a solution like that would cost with the median?
Probably $20,000 to $40,000, because you got to get in there and put that island. It's not a cheap solution, no.
Right.
Alex, you said that with the little posts there that you have now, that they're getting torn up from snowplows. If you put a median in there, how is that gonna stand up to the snowplows coming through? If the reason that they're getting torn up is because it's so narrow, it seems like you might even make it a little bit more narrow if you're going to put some.
Well, I mean, there's potential. There's potential of. Well, this is striped, so you can make it through here and through here. You're not hitting any delineators.
That left turn lane that goes on to 4th, that's just striped. That's not actually a median there.
This would be striped.
Oh, okay.
And that right here, this would be the island.
Okay. But you still have snowplows coming. Is that northbound?
Yeah.
Okay.
This way?
Yeah.
And what would the width be over here? That's 10 feet?
We would try to get 10-foot lanes through that.
Okay.
And what do the snowplows need to comfortably navigate?
Yeah, the snowplows are just about 10 feet wide. I mean, and
10 feet wide? How could we possibly have a 10-foot lane if you've got a 10-foot wide snowplow?
well, they would have to. Where's George? Well,
Well, can we finish our conversation
sure.
first, and then, because.
Or to do something like this, you may have to take out some of the curbs and make the whole intersection a little wider. I mean, I sketched this out. We'd have to do a survey and try to see if we have appropriate widths.
Okay.
I know we have crash data as one of the agenda items, but have we had any accidents in this area kind of throughout the history of the town?
We haven't had any that I know of during this temporary restriction.
How about in the history before we implemented this?
Well, we'll see the data. I don't think there was any, but we'll go.
Okay.
We'll have that data a little later on.
So, Alex, based on what the original goal was for putting those, you call them delineators there, how successful was it? based on what the outcome that?
Well, I think it was very successful on Fourth. It doesn't appear to be achieve what we wanted to achieve on Coal Creek, because the traffic hasn't gone down in that area of Coal Creek that we were worried about.
Right.
Based on the single day of
Yeah, that's.
looking at January 18th of 2017,
Right.
compared to that day,
Yep.
okay.
Shall we hear from the public?
That'd be nice.
I'd like to hear from the public too.
Richard Kupner, 411 West Charles. I'll put this to rest right quick for you guys, okay? How you gonna get an 18-wheeler in there with a 55-foot trailer on it and get it out? You got a loading dock right here. They come in here, they use this turn lane to get in there, okay? And they come around and they back up in that loading dock right there. How are we gonna get them out of there? Huh? That wasn't thought of, was it? This same thing with this right in, right out. The town of Superior only has 3 streets, and all 3 of them now, or 4 of them, are right out only. There's one here right out. First Street is a right out only. 4th Street is a right out only. The people in the town only have one left out of here, and that's going up and out. You really want to box us into a box now? Because the 3 or 4 people don't like the traffic? You're affecting the whole original town of Superior, what you're doing. You need to really study this before you go and say, okay, well, we're just going to put a median in there. That was a for instance right there. What are we going to do about that dock and a 55-foot truck? That's a semi. You go up there, they used to have right here on that corner a yellow 4-inch pipe. Okay? What happened to that pipe after a while? So many trucks hit it at night. It's gone. Okay? That's my first thing. And then, what about the people west of 4th on Coal Creek? These people, I think you live on there, don't you, on the corner of 6th and Coal Creek? She's getting the traffic now. And there's going to be a lot more coming. And I think, we're trying to put a Band-Aid on something that didn't need it, really. Let's face it, we have traffic all in this area. Go out around Boulder and that. Go around Blossville, Lafayette at this time at night, 5 o'clock. It's bumper to bumper. Tonight I went out east on Arapahoe, going to Lafayette. It was stop and go from on Arapahoe from 95th Street to 287. It's a mess, this whole area. We've let development take over, and the people sitting in the board rooms have not said, developers, you bring the streets and the transportation with your developments. Same thing with Broomfield, did that out there on that new development out there. Look what the impact it's done to Lafayette, Broomfield, and that. And it's there, it's everywhere in this area. It's a highly sought after area to live. So you know what? My thing is, if you don't want to live on the corner of 4th and Coal Creek, then maybe you ought to think about there's other places that might be suitable for you. And, I hate to tell it, but Coal Creek was a main arterial for the last 50, 60 years. That was the only way in and out of this town. And, and now at least we have a place we can get to the marketplace. And with this and the way it is now, believe me, we have not shopped at the marketplace since you've done it. Why would I want to go to the marketplace when I got to make a right-hand turn there, go down to the light, make a left, and come back around, go clear up by IHOP up there? That's way out of my way. I'll just go right down there, make a left, go right over the bridge, and go to Louisville and shop at Safeway. So I think you guys we really want to see this marketplace work, okay? But I'm sure that you keep doing what you're doing, and you're going to see a lot of those places close up eventually. Not only just because of the 300 people from here.
Could I ask a question?
Right.
I'm not trying to be confrontational at all.
Oh, you don't have to be confrontational.
I'm trying to understand. Well, first, I agree. I'm not a fan of right turn only intersections. I don't like it at all. There's more than one resident that has a concern about the traffic in original town. So, you know, I don't want it to make it sound like we're catering to one family or one person or anything like that. There's a few people, but I get it that there's a lot of people in original town
There's
that
a lot
don't
of
want to see
people
this
that-
happen.
You know, this, I don't think anybody knew about this. I found about this meeting at 12 o'clock this afternoon.
Okay.
And, you know, has anybody send out flyers and say, hey, we're having a road and bridge committee and this is going to impact you people in the original town?
Yeah.
Nobody contacted us.
So
And I know what your policy is tonight, what you vote on or what you say to send it on to the town board, then that's when it becomes policy. But,
well, this, I mean, absolutely something like this would go before the entire board for them to discuss. But
Well, I
really,
understand that.
my question that isn't a nice question is it reasonable to say that you wouldn't go up Coal Creek, make a right, and then go into the marketplace there instead of going all the way over to Louisville? Or is it more about making a statement? And I
no,
get that.
that's a statement too, because
Okay,
I'm telling you
get
right
it.
now, it's
Thank
putting
you.
me out of my
Yeah.
way.
I totally get that because
Okay.
I've done the same thing.
What does this gal think about all the traffic going by her house now that would have went out that way?
Yep, okay. Yep.
Because now instead of me going out there and going left, 1 block, I got to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 blocks out of my way to accomplish the same thing I could have done in 1 block.
Totally understood, and
What
I
about the
get it.
pollution that's going to be generated from these cars going around like that?
Yep,
Oh, we ain't looking at that, so that's you know, it's just make sure that we can block that off.
sure.
What about fire trucks coming in and out of here on that street? We have one street that they can come in down here at. What happens if we have a major fire and you need more than 1 or 2 trucks?
Yep.
You need more than one way to get on that end of town there.
I
And
think
you say go up this way, go this way. That's time. Time is life.
you
in
bring up a
fire.
really good point about the loading dock there and what the trucks do, and I think that's a really good observation that I'm not sure was taken into account with this drawing. So, thank you for your comments, Rick.
Oh, I got one more comment. Sorry, now I'm on a roll. 4th Avenue never got any snow removal this year because of your ride out only. Because the plow couldn't go down there. So here we're going through snow this deep. The rest of the area has all been plowed except for 4th Avenue.
I didn't know that either.
There's a lot of things you guys don't know. Believe me.
I think we'll all agree to
I think
that.
I'm gonna start taking George's spot over there now.
Love to have you.
There's a lot of things that's going on in this town that you guys don't understand and don't see it.
Okay. More public comment.
Good evening. I will try and be nicer.
Rick's
I'm-
nice. He's got his way about him, and we
Yes,
appreciate that.
Yes. I'm Amanda. I'm actually from Bank of the West. I've been managing this branch. Thank you. I'm glad you came. I've been managing this branch for the last year and a half, off and on between this branch and Louisville. This right turn only was actually brought to my attention by the community last year before the delineators were even posted. It was unfortunately brought to my attention through complaints and threats of losing customers and accounts, which, in my opinion, is a bit premature at this point to get those kind of comments and threats. But with the history that this branch of Bank of the West has had in the last year, it does cause some possible detrimental outcome with Bank of the West. In June of 2017, this branch was the only branch in the state of Colorado that decreased our hours. We now open from 10 to 5 Monday through Friday and are no longer open on Saturdays. And that is because of the lack of foot traffic that had been coming into Bank of the West in this particular branch. If whatever decision comes through and really displeases the community and these threats do come to light, we could possibly be looking at, when the lease comes up in 5 to 10 years, this branch closing and becoming only a call center. And so what that can do for the town is, yes, we do have a business there, but it's not bringing anything to the community itself. It's a call center specifically, when you could possibly have a business there that brings money to the community itself. So that is a possible future for this Bank of the West branch, and if you cut traffic and convenience, I guess. To get into the parking lot, you're going to cut more foot traffic, which causes concern for myself.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Good point. We didn't go out to any of the businesses and talk to them about making any of these changes, have we?
No.
Okay.
George Kuffner, 7520 West Coal Creek Drive. About the snow plows, they're 12 foot. They're not 10. They're 12 footers. We have a lot of crews and a lot of guys plowing snow. That this is a major safety issue for a snow plow. The delineators are there, and I'm glad that the delineators are there instead of a median, because if the median was there, we'd be breaking snow plows, costing me money. And at that time, it wouldn't be feasible for me to push that. Thank you.
Hey, George,
Yeah.
Quick, is it at all possible that you could have possibly an 8-foot plow on the front of your truck?
Yeah, it'd be a pickup truck. Absolutely.
Okay, thanks.
David Harper, 104 6th Avenue. I hadn't seen these numbers before this evening, and I'm getting slower at mental arithmetic as I get older, but if I look at the numbers of vehicles that are traveling from 3rd to 4th Avenue, and then from 4th Avenue to 6th Avenue, the difference within a reasonably close approximation is just what goes, is the numbers that you're showing as going northbound on 4th Avenue. And so, as far as I can see, looking at them, if I look at the prior count and the 2018 count, there really isn't much difference, except in that, I mean, it looks like there's a 29% decrease, but since the 200 and the 150 totals are only like 15 to 20% of the total traffic that went on Coal Creek, the term going on to Coal Creek Drive, it doesn't seem to me that these numbers show any reduction in traffic, really, within sort of statistical limits, either on Coal Creek or on 4th Avenue.
Bill Kuffner, 75 West Coal Creek Drive. What I've noticed is there's more cars going up Coal Creek and making that right and coming back down around. I don't think we've done a fair survey of when the little kids play baseball and more cars come and go that way. And you know, all these things, these buildings, the bank, the loading dock, they were all designed for people to use that street and have access to go to them places. What are we trying to fix? You know, and then if everybody in every town said, we're gonna make you drive around 6 blocks, how much fuel would we consume to appease the people, if 5 or 6, even on Coal Creek Drive? Every street. McCaslin, if we decided to do something about McCaslin cut through, we wouldn't have a road there. 90% of those people are cutting through. I mean, what are we trying to fix? We need to see some reason in this, having all those people drive around and wasting fossil fuel. It's not going to last forever. Back in the gas crunch, towns wouldn't be asking people to drive around certain ways. Or yet, how about living in a free country telling them where to drive? You can't turn right here. We built the road so that you can turn right. We paid taxes so you can turn right and left. But now we're going to tell you where to drive. And then spend more money to drive that way. It seems like a habit. I mean, all these things were there. When Old Town was here and they decided to put PetSmart, Target, and all these things in, they put just as much brain thought into this as you have. Now we're trying to redo it for a couple complaints. I mean, I don't like it either, all the people coming up there, but you just have to deal with it. It takes me 45 minutes to go to Boulder and visit my mom. It used to take 10 or 8 minutes. That's just a reality of where we live. 36 just got done. Look at it in the morning. Cars are stop and go all the way into Boulder. Sometimes there's just not a fix unless you really study it and you widen the roads and you can appease everyone. The bank, The people loading their trucks there used to be a fire hydrant right there. And I moved it across the street because of the trucks having a hard time getting in there. And then on the snow plows, they're 12 foot long, but when you angle them, sometimes you can make it through. At 10-foot plow, and you can get through to an 8-foot thing, but when you get them too narrow, you can turn them all the way one way, and that's all the room you have. That's why you see some of the curbs where it gets narrow up by the shopping center, they get a little too narrow. The snow's 2 foot deep, you can't see those curbs. I've done it for 15 years. That's why you hit them once in a while. That's how things get broke. So to narrow things down and put things, and when those delineators are up there, if you drive by and look, they're a good 1.5 feet or 2 feet into the lane on the other side of where the yellow line is. I mean, if people in the left coming through there, you're almost trying to cause an accident by what you're doing. You're squeezing down one way or the other. I mean, you really need to physically go out there and look. There's a yellow line, and then 2 feet over, there's a delineator. I mean, I think put some more thought into this and come up with something that will work for everyone. I think it can be done. I think they tried to do that when they built that whole shopping center, from this corner clear to Costco. You know, and the way they got the roundabout where you can get in and out and go. We build roads so that we can use them, not close them down to specific needs. Thank you.
Any other public comment? Yep.
Hi, Marina Rudolph, 103 6th Avenue. I'll agree, traffic has increased. I mean, not scientifically, I'm not sitting there doing tallies, even though I think about it, but I definitely think traffic has increased up Cold Creek, and it's definitely heading west. And the thing, and you know, I could tolerate that, but you know, like you say, that's just the way it is now, except the speeding is phenomenal. And it's heading west. Everybody thinks it's coming downhill, and yes, sometimes coming downhill, it's very fast, but it's primarily people just gun it up that hill. I don't know why. So I would really love it if we could revisit traffic mitigation. And I hate to say it because everybody hates this thought, but the traffic humps. If we could consider that one more time and maybe get some temporary ones and see if, you know, if we make it less easy for them just to zoom up the hill and take a left out of town, maybe it would not only curb traffic, but slow it down. Thank you, and thank you so much. Thank you for trying, and thank you for all the attention you've given to Cold Creek. We really appreciate it.
Laurel Russell, 212 West Maple Street. I wasn't going to come up here and say anything, but I think that the points that have been made are excellent. I think a solid medium would make me even more angry than I am at times, which brings up another point. You might want to think about getting anger management classes going for people. And part of a reason for them going fast up the hill is because they're angry that they have to go all that way out of their way. Anyway, I know it is a problem, and I appreciate what Alex has tried to do with it. But I don't think this is a solution. And another thing that I think is going to happen with this is it's going to make it harder for people to get to Target, to get to Costco, to get to whatever. Those businesses over there need to be refreshed. They need to be filled up. And the way I look at it, the harder you make it to get in there, the blanker that's going to be. You're going to have a bunch of empty buildings with graffiti on them. Of course, then everybody will be in downtown, so maybe all the traffic will be on that side. I don't know. But I really think taking down the right turn only is a good thought.
Any more public comment? To the residents that just walked in, we're just finishing up a discussion on the turn on 4th Street. So if you wanted to give some public comment. Great, okay. Okay.
Kevin, what do you think?
First to the question, what are we trying to do here? It was identified that it was a potential safety and quality of life issue for the amount of cars on Coal Creek and the cars that are speeding on Coal Creek. Presumably, my experience is people don't tend to speed in their own neighborhood, they tend to speed in other neighborhoods, so there's a hypothesis, I don't know if it's true or not, that the folks that were using Coal Creek to cut through may have been some of the offenders that were speeding. So the objective here wasn't to block or, we didn't want to create this one way, this right turn only. My recollection of it is, we looked at a number of different options and there was some agreement that this was a option that we would experiment with, and this was only an experiment. I frankly was worried about the timing of this because this was done right before the holiday, and a couple of people commented around how we need to support those businesses. We don't like the vacancy rate in that shopping area, and I want to bring as many folks to that shopping area as possible. But at the same time, I don't necessarily want them going through a residential neighborhood. If you have to wait at a traffic light for another 30 seconds to go to Costco, it didn't seem to me like it was that big a deal. But I recognize there are folks that cut through. So that answers the question, why did we do this? Again, we did this for quality of life and potential safety issues. And said that if we've created two things, number one, if we haven't seen a significant impact on the traffic on Coal Creek, which was the purpose, then I don't see the need why we would necessarily, I would not personally be supportive of converting the experiment into a full-time solution. I agree, Rick, thanks. Of course, the medians are a non-starter, right? I mean, they just can't happen for that reason. But even without the median, personally, I'm not supportive of my recommendation would not be to look to convert this experiment into a permanent solution. I think we either need to continue with the experiment, maybe try to get some additional data, but unfortunately, we can't go back in time to 2017 and collect traffic data over a longer period of time. If all we have is that one day, we don't know what happened on that one day, whether or not it was good weather or bad weather, or there was a sale at Costco. I mean, who knows how, so it's challenging. But anecdotally, we have received comments that it appears that the traffic on 4th Street has been reduced, although the data just doesn't show that, so I'm kind of conflicted there. But I would not, anyway, to summarize, a lot of words, I would not convert this experiment into a full-time, into a permanent solution at this time, or even continue to look for a permanent solution that involved the right turn only on Sycamore, whether or not that was through an island or anything else. It's just the data that you've presented doesn't warrant that conversion at this point.
What do you think?
Thank you, everybody, for coming out tonight and speaking during public comment. This is a tricky situation. This committee in general, I enjoy this committee, but we're dealing with traffic issues which affect people on a day-to-day basis, right? So this affects our lives probably closer than most any other thing that we do on the board, right? We might approve a land use application, and that might be a big decision, but in how we actually travel, the streets is something that we're doing every day, multiple times per day. So, it's definitely something that for the people who are directly affected, it's going to make a big difference. And we're trying to navigate an issue where there's a difference of opinion as to how we're going to actually go about dealing with certain issues, and we don't necessarily have the solutions. And I think what we did here is a good thing, because I think we do a disservice to the town if we're non-responsive, right? And that really frustrates people when they're elected officials. They hear complaints, but then they don't actually try to do anything. So, one of the goals with this project was to try something on a non-permanent basis, on a relatively inexpensive basis, to try something out to see if it would work. and then we would come back to it and reassess once we had additional data, once we had the opportunity to kind of live and deal with it for a period of time, and then to hear from the public to see what they think. And like Kevin said, we did receive some comments. We have an email here that was in support of the project and said, the resident is adding their voice in support and said cut-through traffic has dropped off to a tolerable level, and they're supportive of a permanent solution to this. So obviously I think the tone of the room here in terms of the public comment seems to be clearly in favor of not doing this on a permanent basis, but there is a difference of opinion in terms of how people view this experiment. When we were looking at this originally, one of the proposed solutions was to potentially close off 4th at Sycamore altogether. So we considered some other alternatives, potentially closing off Coal Creek coming off of McCaslin at first, right after Town Hall, to see if we could address the cut through, because there was the issues were not only just the cut through traffic to the marketplace, but also just trying to decrease the amount of traffic on Coal Creek from a quality of life perspective for the people who live on that area, to try to encourage people to use Marshall. We had public outreach and in the town's e-blast emails to encourage people to use Marshall, put up additional signs to encourage people to use Marshall instead of Coal Creek. And I think that taken together was a good thing. Just trying to change behavior is really difficult. But when I look at the data, although it looks like the 4th Avenue traffic has decreased, it doesn't look like we've done anything with respect to Coal Creek. So I think people are still traveling down McCaslin. They see the red light at Marshall, and then they just zip on up Coal Creek to avoid sitting at the red light at Marshall. And we haven't really changed the behavior. In terms of a permanent solution, I am not in favor of spending $40,000 on a median that's going to get torn up by the snowplows. I think we're dealing with just the way that this intersection is designed. We're trying to find a solution to something that it's really hard to make a solution to, just based on the way that this intersection is designed. I mean, you have this little section in the northwest corner that kind of jets out. You've got the loading dock here. I hear the issues from the bank, so thank you for that. I don't think we did sufficient outreach in terms of reaching out to the businesses in the marketplace as to what they think about this solution. So I agree with Trustee Ryan. I don't think that a permanent solution on this is appropriate. But to me, the question is, what do we do now? Do we continue going forward with this for a period of time, or do we just abandon it and say, okay, we've tried something, and we've now made a recommendation that we shouldn't do this going forward anymore? So I think that's really the issue that we need to resolve. And frankly, I think it was a good experiment, but I don't think that this intersection should be designed with this sort of solution. So my recommendation would be to remove the delineators and go back to life as it existed before we started this project.
What about so Mark, I agree. What about but presumably keep the signs, local traffic only? There's a couple signs that went up, local traffic only, no harm with those signs?
Yeah, I don't see any harm with local traffic only, and encouraging people to use Marshall should be something we continue to do. I question if we're not going to have the delineators there. We have the right turn only sign right now, and that's a farce. It's not going to be enforced, and it's, people are going to go straight. So I think we shouldn't have signs up that we're not going to actually.
Right, I agree.
Yeah.
I was talking about the signs on McCaslin, not the one on.
Yeah, no, the local traffic only, encouraging marketplace access using Marshall. I'm fine with that. I don't see any harm in having those signs.
Okay. Good.
Well, I don't know how much my opinion matters now that the two of you think that maybe we should remove that. But, a funny thing is, and I'm going to digress a little bit, before we came down to the meeting today, I was meeting with a friend, and he said, "Oh, what are you up to tonight?" I said, "I've got a traffic and safety committee meeting," and he said, "Oh, well, that's got to be a snoozer. Probably don't want to go to that, do you?" And I said, "No, actually, I do. These meetings have become a meeting that I really look forward to coming to, just because of the group that attends and the group that I work with, and it's just a lot of fun because I do think that we make a difference for some of these things in town, and that the residents that attend these meetings are willing to work with each other. So I appreciate that. Yeah, the main reason to do this test was to see if we could reduce traffic on Coal Creek Drive. And like my colleagues have said, it really didn't change anything. I remember the meeting that we had, Laurel Russell sat in that chair there, and she was saying, "We shouldn't be doing this. I don't want to do this. It's going to disrupt my way of life." And I asked her, I said, "Would you be willing to at least try this? Let's just try and come up with some kind of solution. Let's see if it works for you. If it doesn't work for you, let's see if we can come up with a happy solution for the entire community." And she said, "I'd be willing to do that." And I thought that that was fair. We tried it, and I don't think it succeeded. I think that we need to try something else. But I do agree with Mark and Kevin that we should take the delineators down and move on from this. I also agree that we should leave the signs on McCaslin, saying that it's just for local traffic only. You know, the points brought up tonight actually made this decision even easier. I appreciate, Rick, you know, your points about the trucks that pull into there, because I didn't realize that. And I didn't realize that we used 12-foot snowplows either, so I've learned something new. But overall, you know, we could let these kind of things get to us in our community, and we really shouldn't. There's a lot bigger things in this world that we should be worried about, and whether it's having to go an extra minute to get somewhere, to me that's insignificant. If we're part of a growing town that's a successful town and we have to live with a little bit more traffic, you know what?
They won't come back up Coal Creek, they'll go that way.
Good idea. So, thanks. Anything else on this topic? Okay.
Okay. Okay, the next item was an update on Castle Peak speed humps. As you recall, we had talked about obtaining temporary speed humps, which we have. We have procured them about a month ago, and we were about to install them. And then, given our experience with Sycamore losing these measures to snowplows, we decided to hold off until snow season's over. So maybe the first week in May, we'll install the speed humps. And the problem with these speed humps, they hit kind of a lip on them. And if the snowplows catch them, they could rip them right up. So we wanted to give them a fair evaluation during the summer. It'll still be school, and of course in the fall we'll still have the school traffic, but we wanted to wait until the snow was out of here before we installed them. So, and we did find we've two locations we're going to look at. Here's Rock Creek Circle, I think right in this area here, and then we have a three-way stop at this point, and then there's a trail crossing right up here. So we're going to put them down at this intersection and then over here. And we've already spoken to the people, the residents that live near those, and talked about where we're going to put them and made some adjustments. So we're all set to put them in as soon as the snow season's over.
Thanks. So, ask a couple questions. Were there any regarding the was there any damage this winter to the speed humps on Weldona?
No, not that I've heard about, and the plows seem to be going over. Of course, they're asphalt, so the plows can roll right over those. Okay. But these have, and even the manufacturer recommends not putting them in areas that get significant amounts of snow. So we'll have to look and see next fall whether we want to keep them down or not, or maybe remove them during the winter. But
and then when you look at the data, obviously, and I'm sure you'll do this, if we push the cars to Torrey's Peak on the west side of Indiana, Indiana, right there on the street, then that would be a bad consequence. Hopefully, we're going to push the cars all the way down into Colton. We're slow them down, reduce the traffic. So I'd be, not only I'd be interested in seeing the impact it had.
So you want me to take some counts then before we put them down, and then
let's just make sure we don't have those unintended consequences.
So you're talking about, so this is Torrey's,
right?
So you don't want to push the traffic that is currently coming up Rocky Creek Circle, going up Castle Peak to get to El Dorado, to then get pushed down to Torrey's. That's your concern?
Okay, we'll take some counts at several locations and see what before and after data.
Okay. So for the folks that came all the way, probably after Easter is usually when we could plant our flowers. Should
we will towards the end of April. We'll look at the
Mother's Day. That's right. I forgot. It's Colorado. You got to wait till Mother's Day.
Right.
So
sometimes we get
Day.
The big ones in the first or second week of May. We'll just have to see if no snow is forecast that first week or so in May. We'll put them down right after that.
Okay. And so, how many sets of speed bumps did we order? How much do they cost? And what's kind of the life expectancy?
Yeah, these are they'll probably be about 7,000 for the two, with the signs and so forth.
So $3,500 each.
It's about $3,500 a piece.
Okay.
Versus about 10,000 for the other ones, 10,000 a piece.
Okay.
Alex, you mentioned that we put them up in May and then maybe take them down in the fall. But wasn't the original purpose, I think this was your idea, Mark, is to research removable ones. Weren't we just going to put them up to see if it made a difference? And if it made a difference, then we would consider putting in permanent ones? Wasn't that the goal?
Yeah, I mean, that was part of the discussion. Was one of the concerns with the Weldona speed bump discussion was, wow, these are really expensive, and we wanted to make sure that we were not spending a ton of money and then finding out that, number one, it didn't work, number two, the public was really upset about it. So yeah, I think that the idea behind this was we could deploy these not just on Castle Peak, but if there was some other road that became a problem, we could use it temporarily. My concern with what we hear anecdotally about Castle Peak is it's a problem during the school year, right? So if we're deploying it kind of towards the end of the school year and then taking it up in the fall, it's going to be for the summertime when the problem on Castle Peak isn't necessarily as bad as during the school year. But regardless, I think it's good that we have them. I'm glad we ordered them, and I'd like to see them deployed to see if it makes a difference in terms of the behavior on Castle Peak, and then we can just reassess it. Again, it's a non-permanent fix and not a huge expenditure of money to try to address a problem, but I'd love to hear from the public in terms of what they think on Castle Peak.
Yeah, so we haven't done anything really on Castle Peak yet since we had the discussion and the community was here.
Well,
So we
we've
don't
done
have
some
anything
no parking signs. We've
We had some issues with people parking too close to the intersections
Okay,
near the
all right.
some of
And-
these cul-de-sacs.
Yep.
Right. So I think did they stripe them or they just put signs up?
We put signs up.
Okay.
And one thing we could do is, in the fall, if they're accepted by the neighborhood, be effective, we could plan to put permanent speed humps and take those and try another location, the following year.
Yeah.
And just as a refresher for the public, one of the issues that was brought actually through a citizen suggestion was to consider doing alternate side of the street parking because there was concerns about how densely parked, not only was it a speed issue, but it was how densely parked Castle Peak was. And with all the children that are, coming from El Dorado K-8, there was a safety concern. Ultimately, we decided not to go with that proposal, and where we landed with everything was, let's order these temporary speed bumps and see if they do the trick.
Okay.
We have some people from Castle Peak here.
Yeah.
It's gotten smaller every year, every meeting. Just a quick question. I know you put the counters or the speed limit. I thought you were doing the speed study. And I saw you put the equipment out there after the last meeting.
Right.
Did I miss an interim meeting when that data was presented? Or do you have data from that speed study? Because I thought that was the next, someone up here was asking what the next steps were, and I thought it was the result of that speed
We
study.
had put that data, I think I presented that data to you last year.
It was distributed.
There may be some more data and once you make sure you have your email address, and I can try to find it for you and
Was
give
it
it to
an
you.
internal distribution, or was there a meeting where you presented that?
Well, we got, we put the speed radars, the portable speed
Yeah,
radars.
the little rubber things all across the road, yeah.
Yes, we have counts and we have speed data. Let me go back and see if I have that data, and I'll try to get it to you.
I was just curious if the results of that backed up everybody's observations, or not really. Some of
Yeah.
our observations that
My
people were
recollection
speeding.
from the speed data was
Was it inconclusive?
yeah, it wasn't. We didn't have people going 45 miles an
Right.
hour on Castle Peak.
Yeah, there it was in
There was
29
miles an hour every
That's
now
right.
and then, but
That's my record.
it was like the 85th percentile seemed to be around 26 miles per hour, 27 miles per hour. It wasn't extremely noticeable when you looked at the data that there was a speed problem.
Okay.
But that said, that was just the study that we had on that one particular day. and
29, can you read that there?
Yeah, I see that. 29 is the 85th percentile.
So the 85th percentile is which one? That's 29, and that was, that location 1, remember we had that map of all those locations, so this is location 2. Let me just see. This was from, last year, right? December of 17. Let me just see if I had that.
Well, you could always email it.
Hmm?
You can always email it to me. No,
Yeah,
take
okay.
your time here.
Okay.
I'll give you my email address. Okay.
All right,
That was
thanks.
my only question.
All right.
Alex, if there's a way to append this data to just the agenda for tonight, like whenever it gets,
Sure. You mean when we I can
when we
post it
archive
on the
just so if
notes?
somebody wants to find it online.
Yeah, I can put it on the notes
Yeah,
for
on the notes.
this meeting. Okay.
Oh, and I echo the comment that you made about putting the speed bumps down when school's about to be let out, and so forth. So.
That was kind of the point, was because, and it's the problem is bad
Yeah, Alex, can we actually talk about this for a few minutes? If I knew that the temporary speed bumps weren't, we live in Colorado, weren't sanctioned for a street that had snow, I'm not sure I would have been as supportive of the temporary speed bumps.
Mhm.
These things cost $3,500, but that includes signage.
Mhm.
They're not going to evaporate. If they get dinged up, I don't really care. I think the comments are good. I'd rather do it as soon as possible. If they're in stock, yeah, I mean, if they're sitting in a shed somewhere, let's just get them out. And George, you know, hopefully you can, you know, see the signs and your drivers can, you know, I'd like to hear from you, George. Hopefully the drivers will, you know, have some awareness. And then if you tell us that it's disruptive, but I heard you say last time that you've got no issues with the speed bumps. So.
Can you please pull up map, Alex, and refresh my memory where exactly where you guys are going to put these at? Because this is my route, my personal route that I do, and I can tell you the ins and outs. I'm the guy that goes into neighborhoods and makes a lot of noise, to let everybody know that for public safety.
Right.
So, go ahead.
One is going to be here.
Right
This
there,
is
okay, right. And then how far down? It's gonna be at that three-way, or how?
Two
far
of 'em.
past?
Two of 'em.
Yeah, but from that stop sign, that three-way stop sign.
There's a three-way stop, and then
Yeah.
further down, right there.
Yeah. Okay. That section area is our neighborhoods with the permanent speed bumps that we have on Weldona. From our crews, from my other drivers, we have there's no problems because we put the plow in a float mode and the plow floats over the speed bump and comes back down. So usually, like the one up on Indiana, you're going by the school,
Yeah.
our plows float coming up and float coming down. And sometimes we might leave a little bit of snow on the backside of the speed bump, but we hit it 2 or 3 times with trucks, you know? I think the temporary speed bumps, they seem, like Alex was saying, they go in seasonal because you're worried about hitting them, tearing them. But also you got to think about, it's just not snow trucks, it's a trash trucks. It's going in and out of those neighborhoods too. You got to think about it's roll-offs or construction or demo trucks as well, and fire trucks. Fire truck weighs way more than a snowplow truck, and I just don't think everybody understands that, weight-wise, GVW-wise.
Yeah, I don't think it's an issue with any other trucks. And Kevin, I'm not sure if I agree with having them down right away, because I think I heard Alex say that there's a little lip on them, and that even if you have a floating plow,
If you have a
I think
floating plow.
I think it could catch on
And
that.
our plows are not rubber-bladed plows; they're steel. They're carbon steel.
Yeah, so
We
it's
have
going to
soft steel in the front and carbon in the back. The carbon on wearing, we get more lanes per mile pushing-wise versus just regular soft steel. And Alex is right. You have a lip there, and you have a driver like myself, or you have another guy, other drivers that go in. We have to lift. We have to put our plow in float mode. It's called plow saver. It comes up, but how tough are they? They're going to pull right out of the ground the first pass, and then they're going to be out in the middle of the road, kind of like the delineators.
It sounds like
Or-
what Alex is saying is there's enough of a lip there that it won't allow, and I don't understand. I kind of get what you're saying, your lifts float.
On the float.
But
yes,
I don't think it's going to allow it to float up. I think it's going to catch it and.
It's a pressure system where the plow is right here, and we come across, it's going to catch this ledge, and it's going to come up with cushion, a force of hydraulics, or pressure, and it's going to come back down.
Right, but you have like a ramp or whatever. I mean, it's like it's connected
What's
to
your
this
degree on your
concrete.
angle, Alex? On these? What are the degrees of the angles on these temporary?
We haven't seen them, but they're basically rubber
Right.
that you're going to bolt into the pavement.
Okay.
So the rubber, is probably an
Right.
inch or two thick. So
Absolutely.
I don't know how down into the asphalt we can get those. And
That's a good question.
again, we want to test these out. I didn't want to lose them the first snowstorm, and so maybe they'll last through some snowstorms. But I didn't want to take the chance on losing them right away.
Well, I'll
Yes.
test them for you. Bring them up to the shop. I'll bolt them in the ground. We'll test them for you if you want us to.
I love that idea. Thank you.
No problem.
So.
Community collaboration.
It sounds like, Alex, then you would grind away some of the asphalt so they would actually be
Right, or
recessed.
put something that, doesn't prevent a limp, put maybe, some, small lip asphalt, make it more flush.
Well, if you could do that, then I agree with Kevin. We should do them as soon as possible. But if there's going to, if the chances are that they're going to get lifted up on the first pass with the snowplow, I'd say let's wait a couple of months.
Right.
But if we can put them in without them being pulled up by the snowplow, then let's do it.
Mm-hmm.
We should have done it 3 months ago.
Okay.
John Barr, I'm at 3235 Basalt Court, so I'm right in here. I have a number of questions. I'm coming late to this party, so you have to excuse me if I ask too many. What are we trying to accomplish? Because it sounds like the speed is not the problem. Is it the number of cars during the school year?
I'll take a stab. So,
Okay.
Speed is a bit of a, I mean, yeah, 85% is at 29 miles per hour, but there are some speeders, but for the most part, the volume exceeds, there are a lot of folks that are cutting through. So you're trying to divert some of the volume. You're also trying to eliminate, these would be designed so they're not speed bumps, they're speed humps. So you don't have to slow down to 10 miles an hour, but if you hit it more than 25, it's not going to be great it's not a very good experience.
Okay. In all cars?
In all cars.
Even a low clearance car?
So Alex, I'll let you answer the low clearance car, but my understanding is these are not speed bumps that are going to interfere with a low clearance car. These, if you've been over to Weldona, they'd be similarly sized.
Yeah, sorry, I'm not, so,
Right.
okay. Even the temporary ones?
Temporary ones are shorter, and they're about 3 inches high. I think the ones on Waldona are 3.5 inches high. So they're a little shorter.
Okay. So, I mean, if the question was the speeding, I have yet to see any of our sheriff's deputies' cars patrolling that street. And yes, I agree, there are some cars that go too fast. There's also a lot of cars that go very slow because the cars are, and this is my opinion, sorry, because the cars are parked at both sides of the street. I mean, you really often cannot double pass. So 2 cars can't meet with cars parked on the side, so people slow down.
And that was one of the comments that we actually had when we were considering the alternate side of the street parking proposal. That was the citizen initiative. One of the comments from the public was actually when you have people parked on both sides of the street, that tends to slow people down, more so than if you open it up. But one of the things that we heard from Sergeant Chamberlain was that he had issues with his deputies actually finding a spot to patrol based on the way that the street was parked. So he was having a hard time getting one of his deputies to actually set up speed enforcement on the street based on the density of the parking.
I guess I find that, okay.
That's just what he said.
That's interesting. So my other concern, I kind of come from a European point of view, and the European point of view is you don't put things in the road to cause accidents. So, putting something in the path of a car where if the car went too fast, it does something wrong, I would say that's a bad thing. If this is just a hump, okay, I know Boulder, Cherryville, between Arapahoe and South Boulder has some humps there. Those are not 25-mile-an-hour humps, even though the speed limit is 25. So I've yet to find a real 25-mile-an-hour hump that doesn't cause a problem with the car going at the speed limit. So I would like to see that.
Feel free. Seriously, please drive. So it sounds like the ones on drive. I suspect you may have a low-profile vehicle. So drive through.
I've seen some.
Right. So check out Weldona and let us know what you think, and feedback is greatly appreciated. So.
I'm really concerned about where you're going to push the traffic, because I agree there's too much traffic on Castle Peak. There has been. I moved in here in 2001, and there's always been too much traffic there, but I don't know what, the right way for them to come in is the school route on Indiana, but people don't do that. I don't know that you're going to be able to push them all the way there. You're going to push them onto forget what that street is you told me. But, so, yeah, I think, I don't know that this is going to be the right solution. I would not, I would love to see the numbers before and after. If numbers is what you're trying to achieve, I don't believe that speeding is the problem.
And we don't know if this is the right solution either. So this is, a similar situation that we're finding ourselves in, like we had in Coal Creek, 4th and Sycamore. And we've just had a number of residents complain about Castle Peak, that it's an ongoing issue with speed. That's one of the main concerns, with the amount of kids that are traveling that street, with people who live on that street who are concerned about letting their kids play in their front yards because if a ball rolls into the street and somebody's driving too fast on Castle Peak, just the geography, the topography of that street, it just results in higher speeds than we see elsewhere within the community. So that's why we asked Alex to look into non-permanent solutions, and we came to the temporary speed bump solution, and we're going to deploy it and then reassess once we have some additional data. But I share the concerns that with the snow plows, if we can put them out there and make sure that they're not going to get torn up and thrown into somebody's yard or into a car, like, let's do it sooner rather than later, because the whole point is that this is an issue during the school year, and I don't want this to be a summer only speed bump. It seems like that's a solution that's in search of a problem rather than a solution to a problem.
I mean, the saving grace of doing this is you're not going to disrupt any businesses. And I believe that what happened out here on 4th is going to have a lasting effect on the businesses. It's not, as soon as you take it up, it isn't just going to fix itself. So you don't really have any businesses you're going to disrupt by trying this. So, thank you.
The next steps, you can try to get them in as soon as possible and work with George, put them in a shop. Thank you.
Okay. We're getting close to the end, so I think in a few weeks, probably right after Easter, we'll take a look at the weather. Maybe we can keep our plows off for a while.
We could ask BVSD to extend the school year and put the kids in school during summer so we can see, what traffic actually does.
That'll go over well.
Yeah.
So are you making that recommendation right now?
I think that should come from you. I don't have kids in BVSD yet, so.
Okay, on a more global perspective, this is the annual accident report, crash data that we collect. The sheriff sends me the accident reports each year, and I try to compile them and do some analysis for see what the trends are in accidents. So here's a graph of accidents over the last 7 years. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years. So this past year we had a little uptick in accidents. The red is the public accidents on public streets. The blue are private accidents in parking lots and private developments. So we did have an uptick in accidents last year on public from 80 to 95, but it was down from 2 years ago. The how it looks in terms of the breakdown between fender benders and injury accidents, it's held steady, about 11 to 16 accidents per year, and I do have breakdowns on where those injury accidents are occurring. And this was interesting to me that we had 4 of the 11 injury accidents last year were on State Highway 128. In fact, we had a fatality there last year, if you remember. And I didn't even realize that, our town limits go all the way to the entrance to the wind facility on 128 and go east as far as El Dorado. So we actually have the State Highway 128 Ridge intersection is in the town limits. In fact, we had Indiana, we had a couple of accidents on State Highway 128 in Indiana. So, and that kind of said, well, why is 128 in the town limits? And apparently that was done years ago when we were looking at getting the wind facility into town. So anyway, if you discard those four, we only had 7 injury accidents in the whole town, which is pretty remarkable when you look at other cities and what's happening.
So Alex, we had 2 major accidents on McCaslin and Indiana. I don't mean Indiana, I mean the residential Indiana.
Yeah, we had a very serious accident with the bike.
Right, we had the biker accident, and we had that was probably up a little bit from Indiana, but we had the Jeep truck. I guess that was
on 128.
That was 128. That wasn't Indiana.
Right. Yeah, I have a breakdown of the intersections here too.
That was the fatal accident here on this.
Okay.
sheet.
So there's intersections versus non-intersections. Then we had the DDI crashes. I wanted to give you an update on those. This includes both McCaslin and Marshall and the 2 ramp intersections. And as you recall, we were constructing in 2014, 2015, so we had a number of accidents then. But even in 13, if you combine those 3 intersections, we had over 35. We dropped down to I think 18 accidents in 2016, upticked a little bit to 22 accidents on those 3 intersections last year. And that's Marshall McCaslin went up from 5 to 8, and the 2 crossovers went up from I think 13 to 14. And then here's the intersections kind of listed by the worst to least. And US 36, you see those accidents been dropping over time. Marshall McCaslin, significant decreases after 15. Marshall Sycamore continues to have, because that's a skewed intersection, a lot going on, we continue to have accidents at that intersection. Rock Creek and Colton is another one that I think I need to take a look at it. I think there's some issues with geometrics and signing there that we need to look at.
Alex, on the top of the McCaslin 36, so in 2011 and 12, it was 11, then it popped up, and then it came back down. So is that just...
In when?
In 2011 and 2012, you had 11 accidents at McCaslin 36. Then it jumped up to 22 in 2014, and then started going back down in 2015.
14 is when we started construction.
So are you saying that we increased traffic accidents because of the construction?
Well, we had a lot going on, lane closures and a lot of congestion that was occurring during that period.
Okay.
So I think that had a lot to do with it. When you have lane closures and you have a lot of traffic merging and so forth from 2 lanes to 1, you get some additional accidents.
Okay. What do you think accounts for the drop off at McCaslin and Marshall, starting in?
Well, I think we added the triple left. We also had single left turn lanes. We went to double left turn lanes. We probably had better, I think hopefully in 16 and 17 we had better progression through the interchange. So I think we had a lot of things going on at Marshall McCaslin that helped. We also went, I think we had a permitted operation that we went to protected. So we had a red arrow instead of a green ball for certain times of the day. So that may have had something to do with it. A couple of things that on 88th, So those two intersections, these are at Shamrock and in Waldona. Again, those don't have turn lanes. We have continue to have, 1 or 2 accidents at each of those a year. And this past year, we had an injury accident. You may ask about Maine, McCaslin, Maine. That just opened in September. I think one of them occurred before the full roundabout was underway, and we had a lot of, the shoe flies and so forth. But I think we had 1 or 2 accidents in the roundabout, but they were minor accidents. So we continually to monitor those and go out and look for problems, and based on this data, it kind of shows us where things are occurring, and we want to make sure we pay attention to some of those intersections.
Good.
Okay. One other thing I thought may be of interest, parking and traffic in downtown Superior. Okay, so 2 weekends ago, there's a tournament, I think, at the sports stable, and we've been meaning to count parked vehicles and count traffic. And as you recall, when you approved the sports stable, and we talked about monitoring the parking and the traffic, and when parking demand equated to about 85% of capacity, you wanted to do something about adding additional parking. So this was kind of our first go around on counting parked vehicles. So this is actually counts on Main Street, and you can see Friday, this was on May 8th and 9th. We had 3,179 vehicles per day. Again, equate that with Coal Creek, where we had 11 or 1,200. 3,777 on Saturday, 3,504 on Sunday. So I went back and looked at the traffic study and said, well, what were we predicting in terms of the sports stable? And I went back and I think that we predicted 3,300 vehicles per day being generated by the sports stable. So it's pretty close to what we were predicting. We also have, some townhomes that are, occupied, maybe some construction going on, but this is the traffic that we have right now on Main Street, right by the internal roundabout. And then the table I had handed out of the parking. So what we did was we went every hour and we counted parked vehicles in every lot, along Main Street on Superior Drive, the north lot and the south lot on the sports stable, the temporary lot in front of the sports stable, and then the actual garage. And you can see the counts of parked vehicles. The highest we had was 218 parked vehicles on Saturday at 11 a.m. So right now it appears that we have adequate parking, especially at the parking garage. And you can see we're not getting a whole lot of cars parked in the parking garage when you look at the table. So I had that data. I just wanted to share that, and we'll continue to look at this when we have peak weekends to monitor the traffic and make sure we have adequate parking for the uses out there.
So those cars, so someone's physically going out there and counting them one by one.
Yeah.
But it can't be 3,000 unique cars.
It's the parking that's counted.
So some of those.
Yeah, for this is road tubes. These are road tubes like we did on Coal Creek. We just put the road the road tubes across Main Street and counting the traffic crossing the road tubes.
Oh.
That's this data here. The other data in the table is actual counts of parked
right.
vehicles.
Yeah. Okay.
So that's a lot of parents dropping off kids at hockey practice and then.
Yeah, they
leaving
drop off
coming
and
back,
come out,
picking
yep.
them up, going to and from.
I haven't thought to check in the last few weeks, but I'm surprised how many people continue to use the construction road, the temporary road. People pull out of the temporary parking lot, turn left to avoid Main Street,
Right.
and then use the temporary road and come up that way. Are we ever going to shut that down?
The temporary parking lot or the way to get
temporary
it?
road.
The temporary road to get to the construction, the lot right in north of Main Street?
Correct. I still see non-commercial vehicles using that road all the time to avoid Main Street.
Mhm.
I don't want to say all the time, but last time I kind of paid attention to it, I was there a few weeks ago, and
I think they've shut it off now.
okay. If
So
it's-
you can't get to it from, or like Marshall comes
Okay, if
through.
it's shut down now, great.
Yeah.
It was just as of a few weeks ago
No.
or whenever I noticed.
Yeah,
it
it's
was
shut down
still-
now.
Okay,
Mhm.
good.
Okay.
Sure.
Yeah. Can you come up to the mic?
So John Barr again. I think the reason people are doing that is Main Street really feels narrow, especially when you have cars parked on it, even with a small car. I mean, that's just my observation, but it does not feel like it's wide enough.
And that,
And I think as you build the buildings up alongside it, it's going to feel even more narrow, but I'm not sure there's anything you can do about it at this point.
there isn't much we could do, and that is frankly, it's a design for a 50-mile-an-hour road. And
Yeah.
so it's designed to get people to slow down and say, wow, look at that dress shop, wow, look at that.
Right, yeah, I
So
understand.
it's
Yep.
part of the design.
Okay, all right.
Thank you.
That's all I have tonight. Does the committee have anything?
So I'd asked to, and I didn't think to email you this within the last couple of weeks, I'd like to have a discussion around reducing the speed limit in town. I recognize that Kendra's going to have a point of view on that others will have a point of view on that, but since I asked for that a few months ago, I haven't heard anything, and this appears to be the forum to have that discussion. So if you could do the work and make sure that's part of the agenda, and if Kendra and Matt tell us that it can't be done without traffic study and state law prohibits this or that, I'd like to see that. But I've been asked multiple times by residents why there's a speed limit of 25 miles an hour and can we do something about it. I'm not going to suggest that I have an opinion one way or another, but I think it's appropriate for this committee to have that dialogue, and if the answer is we can't or we don't recommend it, so be it. But I want to have the dialogue, and this feels like the committee. So I asked a few months ago, and I'm asking again.
Okay.
And is your question / proposal to do everything now that is 25 to change it to something else, or to do it on a street-by-street basis? What is the idea?
That it would basically default to 25. So if default to 20, for example, instead of the default, which is 25 for the residential.
Okay. So any street that has like a driveway access from a house,
Correct.
that would be 20?
Correct.
Okay.
Right, you would take out the connectors, and, right, but yeah, I forget the exact term, but yes, it would be the residential streets.
Okay. Yeah, I'm all for having a discussion in this forum. This is the appropriate forum to have.
Right.
So we should just notice it and.
Okay, I'll report back to Matt, and I'll see if I can get some research done on how to go about doing that. Talk to our town attorney. I know she has her opinions. I know there's engineering studies that would have to be done
No,
to justify it.
Nope.
So we'll bring all that
I
back.
believe there's been a comment that an engineering study would be required. I'd like to see the the statute that would require that engineering study. So
Sure.
I don't want to just make a statement as if it's the.
Sure, okay.
I want to have that discussion.
So you'll put that on the next agenda?
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it could be a 5-minute discussion, or it could be the full time?
Okay.
Yep, okay. Good.
Okay.
I think it would be important, if we're gonna have a discussion about something like that we're careful about how the agenda is actually worded, that
We're changing the
we are
speed
not
limit.
making necessarily a proposal to do this townwide.
Right.
But, to the extent that this is a discussion.
Right, something to the effect of preliminary discussion to determine,
Just about parameters. What are
feasibility
parameters
of, right.
Right.
Of speed
Right.
limits?
But
I
we-
agree.
We certainly don't wanna just raise the alarms and.
That's certainly a good way to fill the house.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm gonna miss the next meeting.
Oh, we'll work around your schedule, don't worry.
Good. Thanks, Alex.
Thank you, everyone.